So I'm here with Dro Tan from Matex. Dro, please tell us about your organization.
Okay. Well, thank you again to MCL News and Michael for giving us this platform to share with you about Matex and what we do. We are starting a revolution here because we are coming out of our closets and we are trying to make this planet a bigger planet as we would do. Because in Matex, from day one, we believe in giving, and in giving we believe that this gives more benefits to the society, to the environment, and as a company, we actually develop solutions in dyes and chemicals, but these solutions have to be pragmatic and executable, implementable at the end of the day. As Winston Churchill might have actually given us some inkling that we actually make a living by what we get, but we make lives or impact lives by what we give. So this philosophy itself, and in Chinese we call this 舍得, to give, and it's meaningful to get even more from that. So when we tailor our solutions, we believe in this whole mentality or this whole philosophy of doing this. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the biggest environmental challenge for the textile dyeing industry right now?
We think it is because the dyers were held in very high esteem from before. I mean, they are the people who create value. When you do a textile dyeing, you change the kg of cotton, for example, into something where you wear on yourself, 200 grams of fabric, but the actual value translation goes very significantly more. And the textile dyers were held very high in esteem because there's a lot of knowledge that goes into doing that. But the environmental challenges of today continue to be very pressing, as we heard out at today's Planet Textiles 2019 forum. It's even more pressing, and there's a big shift of mindset. So the dyers have to actually continue to be able to keep up with this speedy change. And so is the industry, because they have a lot of technology today available out there, but it's the ability to harness this energy and put them to the right use, and so that this can benefit even more people, as we expect even more people to come on this one planet that we have. Today we are 7 billion, by 2030 we heard that we'll be almost 8.5, even 10 billion, and this poses a big problem because we have a lot of textiles that will continue to be generated, and we talked today also about the circular economy. So the solutions that we put in needs to actually come back in the loop and find the best way to work around.
And so you're thinking that it's really important that for textile dyeing industry to keep the pace. It sounded like what you said, to keep up the pace with the new solutions that are required. Okay. A more specific question. What's the problem using salt to dye cotton fabrics? Because I think that's important. Because if regulations are followed, isn't that not a problem?
For a long time, since the invention of dyes, actually dyes were used before William Perkins actually invented dyes. It was all natural. And I mean, the Chinese have been doing this for centuries, and civilization in Egypt and different ancient civilizations. And because it's becoming, when the dyes were invented itself, dyes were synthesized and they were less efficient, and they will find ways to best push this onto the fabric. So salt was then introduced by ICI in the 50s to try and push the dye. But the salt itself is the main problem because it doesn't actually react with an affinity to the fiber, and the more difficult or more challenging problem comes after, because you have to get the salt out from the fabric. Otherwise there's a lot of bleeding from the fabric, poor fastness, and also the salt goes into the wastewater treatment, which is one of the most pressing issues at present, because salt is known to be corrosive. Salt is used in abundance, and it takes a lot of space as well. So in a smart mill or smart factory today, we are talking about ways to be lean, to be more productive, and sort, if we can take out this equation, makes the whole equation lighter and easier to move quickly. Just to give you an example, if you imagine dyeing 1,000 kg or tons of dyes at a factory over a year, the amount of salt that you need to use is almost 15 to 20 times of that. And this salt itself is not actually being utilized, or it has to take a lot of energy to recover. So it doesn't help in any way to the factory or the brand or the consumer itself in terms of the carbon footprint or the footprints of being life.
Are regulations enough to ensure that we're not using so much salt, or the regulations aren't working?
Regulations are coming in tightly now, because the regulatories have been focusing on the other parameters of the wastewater. For example, they were looking at CODs, they were looking at BODs, color index. But today, the salt itself is being put up on as a key leader on this platform, because they're now looking at total dissolved solids, for example, TDS, and they're looking at values less than 3,000. Some countries that I know, they're looking at 2,000. And to reach these values, people have experimented from changing from global salt. There are different kinds of salt also. So from the harsher, cheaper salt, they're moving to sodium sulfate, and this cuts the TDS values, but it still doesn't quite equate to if we had a solution that totally eliminates salt from the system. And salt, like for example, when we eat, we try to also be more health conscious. We take salt out of our food, and I hope that in the future this would also be what the industry would look to as well. Because besides water, which is also a chemical, H2O, salt is the, as in my opinion, in our opinion, is the other most pressing thing that can be actually addressed. Yes.
Are your direct customers asking for environmental solutions?
They are. We have two types of customers. We have customers with the brands, we have who hate sustainability, we have customers in the mills. We have even consumers asking us if there are such solutions available, because the consumers today are more informed. It's becoming more transparent. You can find a lot of information on the internet, and they are also quite savvy in terms of looking into what is being offered, what are they buying. Even consumers like you and I would take an extra glance into what we buy. I mean, we have swing tags like that available to describe the solutions that's on board. And I think it's this push and driver, and also that the fact that the consumer is not limited by what the factories produce to serve him, but he actually now dictates what he wants to buy or what he wants to customize or make. That creates and drives the consumer's preference.
So are they willing to pay this additional cost often that it requires, or is that still a challenge?
So we do need to balance out their expectations and what we put on the table. So there are consumers who are willing to, who are understanding. They are saying that this benefits actually contributes to this one planet that they have and we share. So they are willing to go the extra mile and put it, but of course we need to balance in the benefit of actually having that solution over, because there are many ways that leads to Rome, so there are different solutions out there as well. So he has to weigh out why I would pay this solution or that solution, and finally find a balance for himself to decide. But as I said in the start, we're starting a revolution. This is the talking point to continue to throw up topics like this that brings innovation and differentiation to the table, to disrupt what we think is normal, and have the courage to listen. And I think they are willing to pay to a certain extent. There are, of course, consumers who are not so willing to pay, but I believe pressures from the top and bottom and generations to come will also look into leveling this issue.
So how do you develop these products such as MegaPro Eco in terms of evaluating the return on investment?
Okay.
Is there a certain research and development budget that Matex has for new products, or do you team up with other companies? How do you do all that?
MegaPro ECO is just one of the innovation, and it's our latest innovation in our 30 years history. And because it's also a holy grail that we see that our founder is also very interested in, because for a long time, as I explained earlier, salt has been used in the equation, and we try to eliminate this from the system. And the market and the consumers have been asking for solutions like that. It's just that the issues of fastness, issues of properties have been hindering in the past, but we think that at this stage in time where technology has moved so rapidly, it's ready, and there are solutions to overcome the issues, and how you align the expectations of what's being expected of. So in terms of our ROI, we basically are looking to contribute first to society and environment with what is available, and how do we put all this into perspective, into a proper picture, and present it to the customer. Naturally, as a company, we would hope to be profitable from it, but we take a longer term stand that the industry needs to adjust and move along in tandem. And so for the last 30 years, we have been practicing this as our policies.
And do you team up, with your research and development?
Definitely.
You team up with others?
Where we can promote internally with our work teams, we will try to bring our engineers, our chemists, our technicians up. But we are also open to collaborate with universities for example, in the UK, Leeds, for example, and even in Singapore, in China, in different universities, because there are very good ideas out there, and it's about looking how to collaborate with these innovators, inventions, and we form the commercialization arm so that we can work together in synergy.
So looking ahead, what's the number one thing textile dyers will need to change in order to meet more stringent regulation?
The number one thing that the textile dyers would have to change. So I talked about the textile dyers actually being looked very high or regarded very high in the past, because textile again is an article that is needed by the population. You can't go outside unclothed. So it's important that that we see that the textile dyers status being risen now, because at the moment they are very unfairly or pushed down the value chain, because whenever there's a problem, there's a issue, the first person to get fired or to get questioned is the textile dyers, because the colors is the most obvious indicator that you see. So to help the textile dyer move up, we have tools and solutions like Mega Pro, which we talked about earlier, and we hope that working in partnership with the dyers, we can actually bring this level of challenge so that they can be back regarded into an important part of the value chain. Although it's a small part, but they actually, if we did a study, they actually consume a lot of energy and water, and it's a part which is often overlooked in the industry, especially in the last 20-30 years. But going forward with better technology, I think the textile dyers will resurface again if they're willing to listen, and we can bring more training and technical application to them and to work together.
So if you're thinking about what they will have to change to meet more stringent regulation, are you saying that they need to get more status and then build their competence, or?
So one thing, they need to get more concurrence from the mill owners.
Okay.
So they should be able to get the space to experiment. Sometimes they want to experiment, but because there are a lot of deadlines pushed upon them, it's not easy for them to overcome this, and they have to deliver. And also then the brands itself, hopefully they can also come on board this bandwagon to encourage more training in this aspect, because the dye itself controls almost like the heart of the factory, from the right color, getting it right first time, and getting the products on time to the shops and the retailers eventually. It all depends on that part of the segment.